Hello, I'm Svitek 360 Creative Coach, and welcome to my vlog, where it's both my pleasure and my mission to highlight my creative journey in hopes of inspiring you, giving you specific takeaways, all so that yours can be a little bit easier. Now, before I get into things, I would like to take the opportunity to invite you to subscribe if you haven't already. That way you get all the various lessons and episodes that I put out right when I put them out. Thank you if you already were, and thank you if you just did. It truly does mean a lot to me, as I hope it does to you. So, right off the bat, I guess I should say, welcome back for you and for me. It's been about a 2-week hiatus for me, and that doesn't mean I was on vacation. I was just not doing these shows. And the reason for that is because I was working extremely hard to finish a script and get started with pre-production for another feature film that I want to make. This one to film in Bogota, Colombia. And if you're wondering about more information about what that project specifically is, I will be launching an Indiegogo for that. The link is in the description, so you can check it out. And if you would be so kind, make a financial contribution, or at the very least, share it with friends and family. Now, one of the things that kept happening as I was trying to finish the script, I was desperately just trying to get to a place where the script was done. And, I had called my friend John Comerford, who's an incredible script doctor, a screenwriter as well, and so forth. And I said to him, hey, I keep getting stuck at around page 80 because I know the changes, I know that there's things that I need to change pre-page 80 that will affect ultimately the last, 10 or 15, 20, whatever it is, pages. And I was like, should I send you what I have regardless of the page count, or should I just put something to paper? And he's like, just send it to me regardless of page count, and we could figure out the ending, as it goes. And I was like, okay, cool. But I still challenged myself. Like, it was good to know that in the back of my head, but I challenged myself, and I was able to get through it, and the script ended up being about 91 pages. So I was like, okay, cool. So I sent that to him. I sent it to the actors because I finally wanted them to be able to see, okay, what is this thing? What is, regardless of the quality of the script, I just wanted them to at least see the direction of it rather than me just talking about it in nebulous terms. And, overall not bad, Of course, lots of changes need to be made between now and filming, but I had this past Friday, I had an incredible meeting with John about the stuff that was working and the stuff that needed to be strengthened. And, so I'm already in the revision phase. I'm about 25 pages in terms of the revision. At least as of now, it's working pretty well. The changes that we decided to address in terms of, okay, this will strengthen the story that I'm trying to tell. So far so good in that sense. And my game plan for that is to get through that pass by the end of this weekend, and then send that to John, and he'll take his pass at it and give his notes and so forth. And the reason for that specifically is because the cast and I have decided, let's get together on June 26th to then meet and do rehearsals and really kind of get started and really work the material. So I want to have not this past script for them, but at least a newer draft of it, right? So that's kind of the goal we're aiming for. And simultaneously, as this is all happening, there's the creative side, and then there's the planning side, right? And so we had also a good meeting with the cast, right? So I met with all the cast members that are tentative for this, and it was a good meeting. It was both, we talked creatively, we talked logistics and things like that, and a lot of good stuff came out of it. And for me, a lot of, like, what tends to happen is a lot of this stuff is in my head, right? And now it's just kind of, I was able to answer the questions that they had. Now it's just about putting it to paper. And so I'm almost putting together like this little, what I'm calling a guidebook, right? And it's going to be pretty comprehensive. I mean, it's already 32 pages, and not that it's like, a novel. It's more like an actual travel guidebook. So it's, broken up into all these various sections, and there's a lot of white space and things like that. But it just makes it easy for people to go and find the answer to the question that they may have. And so that's another thing that I would like to have sort of near completion, so that way they see that by June 26th as well. And luckily I have some friends helping me along with that, putting it together. We just basically created a Google Doc. I put the major bullet points, and then from there we're filling it in with subsections and the information that's needed. So yeah, that's kind of, we're moving forward in that realm. One of the other things, I kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, but I always talked about doing a crowdfund for this one. Not that, I'm blessed enough where I can pay for it myself, and that's not to say that like I have this endless amount of money. It's that I know how to stretch a dollar and make a movie for cheap. But it would be nice to go a little bit above and beyond that, hence why I want to do the crowdfund. And, I originally was going to do it in July, but one of my friends, Ken Knapsack, he invited me onto one of his shows, The Positivity Report, which I'll be doing tomorrow. And I just said, you know what, if I'm going to do this show, this is an opportunity to, plug something, right? So let me have this thing ready to go, so that way when we talk and so forth, and it's not going to be me plugging the movie for an hour. No, we're going to be talking about other things, and my aim overall is to help. But the idea is that if for 59 minutes I just can unload just amazing information for his audience, something that they can take away with and utilize, then that 1 minute that I'm given to pitch something, hopefully, that resonates with them, and they'll be willing to, contribute to the crowdfund on Indiegogo. Listen, I might get $5, I might get nothing, I might get a bunch of money, I don't know. But for me, it's better to have that opportunity than not. And I mean, that in itself is kind of really the spirit of my movie. No one's knocking on my door saying, hey, Phil, we really want you to make your movie and stuff like that. And so I have to make my opportunities. And kind of, it's the same way with everyone else involved. They're talented people. I truly believe in them. But, they have to carve out their own opportunities as well. And so for me, it's like, let's just combine forces and come together and in that way. And the one thing that I do know, I get this question a lot, why don't you just make a short film? I'm like, because a short film does nothing. So what? We tour the film festival circuit with it. That's all well and good, but my intention is to make feature films, number one. And number two, I know I can sell a feature film. That I know. Once you have the end product, it becomes that much easier. When you're starting off with an idea and a script and so forth, however good it is, it's extremely hard to get it off the ground. But once you have that great idea done, in the can, edited and so forth, it doesn't even have to be fully edited, enough that like it showcases what it is, you can get a distributor. And not only can you get that distributor, they can help with the funds to bring it, over the finish line. Now that's an oversimplification, of course, and you have to kind of make those connections and so forth. But at this point, because of my first feature, I have made those connections and I know how this game works. So I have that leverage to myself, right? And so, that's why I look at the business side. It's like a movie shot in Colombia that's not about drugs and violence. There's a novelty to that. So that's the business side that I look at. So yeah, it's really all systems go kind of towards this project, especially right now, early on, to get the various things. Like there's a couple of Colombian songs that I would love to use, so I'm in touch with the artists. There's a location that I really want to use, so I've gotten in touch with them, and things are moving forward. And the wonderful part about all this is that my friend Edgar and his wife Lena, they're so on board. They're people who live in Bogota specifically, and I had a great meeting with them after I sent the script. They gave me great notes. They're like, hey, instead of filming here, let's go here, and this would be a cool place. And they said, hey, I know this might be seem like a touristy thing in terms of what Colombians drink, but it's actually, this is much more common. And so having that authenticity within the script itself is amazing. It's just like I continue to do my research, but nonetheless having people very involved that know this firsthand is just invaluable, right? So I have them, and then also Veronica is someone who's Colombian as well, and so she was telling me a bunch of stuff as well of like, hey, maybe we change this to this, and I was like, okay, cool, yeah, so it's really exciting in that way, The other part, as I was waiting, this is kind of backtracking to about 2 weeks ago, give or take, but I had sent the script over to John so he could read it, and during that down period, if you will, there was like random scenes I had to write that serve as like backstory, right? And we're gonna figure out how to insert maybe not the entire scene, but at least the idea or at least a portion into a script that I wrote called In Search of Sunrise. And the reason I'm talking about this because it was just a lot of fun to write a series of scenes. I think about 6 scenes that didn't have to have a through line necessarily, that didn't have to have, even a turn, as we call it in the writing space, a turn like, going from happy to sad or something like that. Like, there was no necessarily point to the scene. It just needs to be written out of like, this is what would have happened, in these characters' lives. And so that way, John and I can kind of work with that, and figure out what to do with it and how it applies to the script as a whole. So that was fun. It was fun to kind of just write 6 scenes that serve a purpose, but didn't have to all the normal stuff of going from one thing to another and making them all connect and so forth. So I don't know. I've yet to get feedback on that, just because like I said, we're focused on this project particularly, but overall, going forward pretty well. The other thing, and I know I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but one of the things that I was kind of thinking about, because someone hit me up about their movie and a crowdfund that they're doing, and it's interesting how, I don't know, and it's not just crowdfunding, it's things in general. Like when people want something from you, it just seems so cold and generic, and I'm like, who responds to this stuff? Butter me up. Like even as something as simple as like, hey Phil, been watching a lot of the content that you're creating, seems like you're doing great. Keep up the great work. By the way, I'm doing X, Y, and Z, would love your support as well. Just something that shows that I'm not just like a number for you, right? Both financially and just like, number of people, but that my contribution actually means something to you beyond just, again, the financial aspect of it. And the irony is you'll get a lot more response that way. It's no different than I see people apply to jobs where they'll go for quantity. They'll apply to hundreds of jobs and then wonder why they never got a single one. It's like, because your cover letter, your email, your resume, it's all coming off generic. It's just like you're just throwing darts at whatever job you can get, as opposed to identifying why it is you're actually going for a particular job. And I just, it's something I stand firm on. If you just do that, you'll get more results in all things. So, the other thing that I was thinking about, just in general, is this idea of being wasteful. Like when it comes, so, Robert Rodriguez, in a lot of the movies that he makes, and especially early on, he talks about like a refusal to spend. Just instead of throwing money at a problem, using creative solutions to solve that problem. Because once you start spending money, that becomes your go-to solution. And, in my life in general, I'm kind of very frugal for that reason. Number one, I don't, in my apartment and things like that, I don't need a lot of lavish stuff. I don't, I'd rather put money into my art versus that, number one. And number two, like just the idea of materialism. Like it's so interesting to me how much you can reuse and what you have at your disposal. But so many people, I don't know. I'm just always amazed when people just are so wasteful. Not only like, because part of it is, yes, it's terrible for the environment in general, but then also I just, fine, if that's not your jam, then I just look at it from a financial standpoint of like, you're just literally tossing money. And I don't know, it's just so bizarre to me. Sometimes people's spending habits, quite honestly, So I don't know, something I've been thinking about in that way. Yeah, so that's kind of the, what's been going on. In order for me to, besides crowdfunding, raise funds for this movie, I've been also selling a lot of old gear. So whether it's trading it in, selling it on Facebook Marketplace, or an app called OfferUp, and just as of now, and this is, I was joking with my friend James Lott Jr., who's an organizer, like a coach that teaches people how to organize, right? That's his profession. And I threw out him this slogan of like, spring cleaning equals summer cash, because money is a motivator. And, my house is overall pretty organized, pretty clean, but nonetheless, I kind of went through a bunch of stuff and I was like, hey, you know what? I haven't used this in quite a while. Let me just get rid of it. I don't need this. And sure, it'll only sell for like, let's say $5, but that's better. It's better to have that in use versus just it, sitting in my house and doing nothing. So I've been selling a bunch of stuff, and so far I've made like over $200, and I sold some old gear that's going to be traded in. So I'm waiting on a final quote for that, but that should be about like, I don't know, $700 right there as well. So, I'm making some good money on stuff that I was never going to use anymore, just trading it in. So rather than hoard all this stuff, get rid of it, all that stuff, yeah, do it. The other thing that I've also did was I applied to some smaller grants, because this movie that I'm making, unlike In Search of Sunrise, won't take a lot of money. And so, having like even $500 here or there, even $200, right? Through some of these smaller grants, that's a good chunk of change. So that'll help, right? So I've applied to a couple of those, and we'll see. So most of them should be kind of hitting in about September in terms of their notifications and letting people know who got the grants and who didn't. So yeah, continuing. All you can do is just continue moving forward and do the best you can. That's what I'm trying to do. So that's where I'm at. Thank you for taking the time to tune in. I hope this was helpful. As always, if you have any questions, by all means, feel free to ask in the comments section or hit me up on social media at Svitek. Happy to converse. It could be about anything that I talked about or something that just happens to be on your mind. Thank you. I appreciate you, and hope to see you next time.